Now, obviously, Musk has made a disaster of the entire Twitter situation, but I believe there's still one thing Musk can do, both to save face and put Twitter on the path to success. And I'll get to that at the end of the video, but first I want to look at some of the mistakes that Musk has made and some of the lessons we can learn about leadership. Now, obviously, there are a lot of tactical mistakes that Musk has made in his specific implementations of these things. The way he laid off half the company, then has to try to hire people back, then later demanding people kind of step up and be hardcore, only to have even more people voluntarily leave. And that's probably only scratching the surface. But I think underlying all those tactical mistakes is one, maybe two strategic mistakes that I really want to take a look at. Now, let's imagine that we're in this situation, right? Imagine we have somehow magically we have inherited Twitter, and it's up to us to put the company on the path to success. But when we get in there, we see that the company is in dire financial situation, and the only way to survive is to cut the company in half and to do it soon. Now, I don't believe that was actually the case with Twitter, but let's give Musk the benefit of the doubt and let's assume that's the situation. How now do you go about making these difficult decisions? How do you gather the information you need to decide what to cut, what to save, who to let go, who to keep on? Obviously, there are two main different approaches. You can look at cutting entire departments, right? And say, okay, we can scale back the company's scope. We can start losing some features, losing entire sections of the company. Or you can try to keep as many departments as possible, but then ask each department or team to make cuts within. Maybe each team needs to get rid of half of their people. Either way, you have some important decisions to make that require information and insight that you don't have as a newcomer. Or even if you had been the CEO for years, you still do not know everything, you don't see everything. So the only way to do this is to rely on your team. And this is the one critical thing that Musk failed to do. He failed to build trust with Twitter when coming into this position. And that effectively set him up for disaster. If not immediately, it's bound to happen. If you don't have trust between leadership and the company, you don't have the accurate information you need to make the important decisions. And that lack of trust is apparent. We see these leaked emails where Musk is effectively threatening that if any manager is claiming that their team members are more critical than they actually are, that manager is also going to be fired. Here's a situation clearly. They laid off a bunch of people, probably people they couldn't afford to lose. Now they're having to ask people back, but there's no trust, and so we have a fiasco. And it's actually interesting to see Musk making this mistake because I believe historically that's one thing he's done well. If you look at how he did things with Tesla and especially SpaceX, of calling people to a higher purpose. He said, we're going to go to Mars and it's going to be hard, but it's important and we're going to do it. Are you with me? In this case, he's inviting people to join a team to step up into a level of intensity and to really have cause and ownership of the path that they are on. This is trust. This is mutual respect between the leaders of the company and the employees, as opposed to the awful way that he's handled it in Twitter, where with no trust, he's just saying, hey, we need everyone to commit to being hardcore. Being hardcore is not a thing in and of itself. You can push hard to accomplish an objective, but without an objective, without a vision, just working hard because you say so, that is only going to be met with rejection and defensiveness. And I know myself well enough to know I am one of those people who challenging me to be more intense really works on me, right? So if you ever find yourself as my manager, there's a tip for you. But it only works if I believe in what we're doing, right? And so until you have established that and established that trust, you're kind of doomed to failure. Similarly, it's been remarkable Elon's seeming failure to be able to read the room and to understand how the actions he's taking are actually going to backfire and oftentimes have resulted in the exact opposite of what he wanted. Clearly, Elon doesn't have anyone around him who he trusts to challenge him on his ideas and to help each other find the best way forward. Because again, you cannot do this on your own, no matter how much of a genius you are. And I will confess my bias. I think Elon's genius is highly overrated. No offense. But even a genius, you're not going to get it right every single time. You need a team. You need that diverse perspectives. You need someone to call you out on your BS when you've gone off the deep end, right? And unless you have that trust in that team, because you've made building that a priority and your first priority, eventually you're going to run into a disaster. Now, I've said that there is still a way out, and here it is. What Elon Musk needs to do is to turn Twitter into a co-op, into a cooperative company that is owned by the people working there. And what that allows him to do is a few things. One, he's able to claim that all of his missteps up until now were in order to weed out anyone at Twitter who doesn't really care about the success of the company. Now, obviously, that would be BS, but it would make for great headlines, and I think it would be enough to kind of cover his butt, so to speak, and it would play into his trolling persona. Two, you're able to now step away from the situation, and anything bad that happens at Twitter from this point on is no longer your fault because you have another group that's at the helm. Whatever new leadership the co-op brings together, their success or failure is now on them and not on you. They're also much more likely to succeed because you have leading it now the people who really know and care about the company. Three, at the same time, you can set up an independent advisory board specifically to rule on how Twitter is handling issues of free speech. I think it was Hank Green who put out a really great video on the concerns that some people have about Twitter, its role in determining free speech, and who it is that is able to control what is allowed on the platform and what is not. Not necessarily that people have disagreements about any particular policy, but there's a concern that they don't necessarily trust the people making the policy. So if, as a condition of establishing this co-op, you are able to set up an independent council that has oversight into the policies regarding free speech, and Musk can maintain control of that council as a condition of the co-op, and he can bring whoever he wants into that. But then he's able to save face to any of his right-wing fans who are kind of championing this move. He's able to keep their support because that's what they really cared about, not necessarily the finances of the company, but who gets to control what is free speech and what is not. You also set the Twitter company finances up for success because as they're kind of decoupled from these intense decisions about free speech versus safety, hopefully having those decisions made somewhat separately can alleviate the turmoil they can cause onto the company's day-to-day operations. So the story then becomes Musk, the eccentric billionaire, comes in, buys Twitter off of the stock market, helps it go private, gets rid of anyone who doesn't really care about the company enough to stay in it for a while, and then like a modern day Robin Hood, leaves the company to be run by the people themselves. This is the best possible outcome for Musk, and I think it's the best possible outcome for Twitter and everyone who cares and uses the service. You're welcome. Now, after that, Elon, if you're looking for the next thing to do, might I suggest getting involved in star voting? Zucks and Gates, if you're watching, same offer goes to you. A generation from now, no one is going to remember or care the details of the Twitter acquisition or the iPhone 15 or whatever it is, right? But if we can create a turning point in the history of American politics, if we can overcome the current two-party duopoly that has effectively stifled our options and our democracy, that would be a turning point in the history of the country and probably the history of the world. And if you really want to make an impact and if you really want to leave your name in the annals of history, annals? Is that a word? Annals? If you really want to leave your impact in the pages of history, I think this is the highest leverage thing you can possibly do. So the invitation is out. Get involved with Start Voting. Help us bring this transformation and take American democracy to the next level. All right, Elon, that's all my advice for you today. Hope you're taking care of yourself, and I'll see you next time.